Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israel uncovering a Hamas command center under one of the largest hospitals in Gaza, using it as a base for terrorism. As the Israeli military makes more gains against Hamas, the Israeli foreign minister warns it will only be a couple of weeks until international pressure grows for Israel to slow down or stop its assault in Gaza. As pro-Palestinian protests are held around the world attacking Israel, today Americans are holding a march for Israel in our nation's capital. And Israelis forced out of their homes because of the war, living in hotels but standing strong and promising they will return and rebuild their communities.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thank you so much for joining us. Hamas no longer has control of Gaza. That is the word from the Israeli Defense Forces, as they also say Hamas was using a hospital for terrorism, storing weapons under the building. And there's evidence they held hostages there as well. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
A key focus of the war is now on Gaza's main hospitals. The IDF revealed evidence that it believes indicates Israeli hostages were being held underneath the Al-Rantisi Children's Hospital in Gaza.
We are now in the basement, and in this basement we found a motorcycle. So they came back from the massacre on the 7th of October into Rantisi Hospital with hostages on a motorcycle.
IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari made a video tour of what Israel discovered under the hospital.
A woman, clothes, and a rope. A rope next to the legs. And look above this. Look above it. It's a baby bottle. It's a baby bottle in a basement.
They found an improvised toilet, diapers, and a living space with curtains, and a tunnel inside the hospital. They also found a large weapons stash, including explosive belts, grenades, weapons, and RPG missiles.
I want you to understand, this kind of gear is a gear for a major fight. These are explosives. These are vests with explosives. Yeah, it's a body vest for terrorists to explode on forces. Among hospitals, among patients. This is Hamas firing RPGs for hospitals. The world has to understand who is Israel fighting against.
The IDF also showed how Israel is providing humanitarian aid for Palestinians, releasing audio of this conversation between an Israeli official and the Director General of the Shifa Hospital, arranging incubators for Palestinian babies, along with pictures of the incubators on their way to Gaza. On the military front, Israel's defense minister says the IDF's campaign is succeeding.
Hamas isn't capable of stopping the IDF. The IDF is advancing to every necessary location. The Hamas terrorist organization has lost control of Gaza. Terrorists are fleeing south. Civilians are looting Hamas bases, and they have no confidence in their government.
The IDF is also capturing more of Hamas's infrastructure, including its parliament, where Israeli soldiers took this picture. In its battle to eliminate Hamas as a threat, Israel's foreign minister says the diplomatic clock is ticking. Eli Cohen says the diplomatic window will remain open for 2 or 3 more weeks before international pressure increases significantly on Israel to slow down or stop the military campaign in Gaza. And in another development, the Washington Post reporting new evidence suggests Hamas's goals on October 7th were much more ambitious than previously thought. The paper saying intelligence information indicated if the first wave succeeded, Hamas terrorists plan to go deeper into Israel and potentially strike larger cities. As Israel keeps up its war against Hamas terrorists, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Fox News' Sean Hannity that Israel's fight is America's fight.
Thank the American people across the board, the American government, the Congress, the Senate, the President, everybody has been very, very strong for Israel because they understand that our fight is your fight and our victory is your victory. And there is no substitute for victory.
Netanyahu said just like in the 1930s, attacks on the Jewish people don't stop with them.
And what the anti-Semites don't realize is the attacks start with the Jews, on the Jews, but they never end there. That's what happened in the Holocaust. People said, oh, well, you know, the attacks of the Nazis on the Jews before World War II, or even the beginning, that's okay. No, it wasn't, because it afflicted all of humanity, all of civilization. And that's what you have here, too. The reason they're attacking Israel is this axis of terror understands that we're the forward position of the West and of civilization. And we're just a stumbling block on the way to you.
And beyond the fight with Hamas, a potentially ominous warning, as the battle between Hezbollah and Israel is now escalating day by day. One expert saying it's no longer just a conflict, but a low-scale war.
Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem with more. Chris, I want to get back to the threat from Hezbollah in a moment. But first, let's start with Israel's war against Hamas. Israel's defense minister is saying Hamas has lost control in Gaza. What is the latest on the fighting there?
Well, Ephraim, what we see is more and more signs of the dismantling of Hamas's terror infrastructure. We've said this already, but it bears repeating. What they're facing right now is the largest terror base in the world. So they're just dismantling it piece by piece. It's taking time, but the major Hamas bases are being destroyed. We've actually heard a report, seen a report that Gazans are actually helping the IDF locate some of these tunnels we've been talking about. So it seems like not only is the terror infrastructure being dismantled, but also the social undermining of Hamas is crumbling. So both in the local population and in the physical infrastructure. You know, Ephraim, I think in the next few days and weeks, we're going to see Gazans speaking out more and more against Hamas. For years, speaking out could mean death or imprisonment or torture. But without the fear of Hamas, I think we're going to get a more truthful picture of what life has been like inside Gaza under Hamas for about 17 years.
Let's turn now to the revelations about how Hamas appears to be operating in a hospital. Why is that so important?
Well, I think for the first time, there's visible proof of what the IDF has said for years, that Hamas is using hospitals as their command and control center. They know that Israel's not going to bomb a hospital deliberately, so they feel like that's the safest place they can hide in. So in Israel's eyes, it vindicates their claim that Hamas is committing a double war crime, not only firing from Gaza into civilian areas, but using hospitals and civilians and the hospital patients as a human shield. So this vindicates what Israel has been saying for a long time.
Israel's foreign minister is saying you've got about 2 to 3 weeks before international pressure really heats up on Israel to slow down or even stop its assault in Gaza. How is the Israeli leadership dealing with this concern?
Well, Ephraim, so far they're holding firm. They're saying there's no ceasefire until all the hostages are freed. You know, there's been many campaigns against Hamas from 2008, 2009, 12, 14, 16, 21. But this time's different from all the other operations in the past. I would say that October 7th was a game changer for Israel. It has struck Israel so hard psychologically and physically, and literally everybody here in Israel is affected by this war and by October 7th. So it seems like there's a firm resolve among the population, among the political leadership, among the military leadership to finish the job or eliminating Hamas as a threat forever on Israel's Gaza border, regardless of what the world is saying.
Chris, you mentioned in your story, the Washington Post is reporting Hamas had hoped to go deeper into Israel on October 7th, possibly attacking cities and sparking a wider Middle East war, and that they prepared for a second phase of assaults. Do these revelations vindicate Israel's concern Hamas wants to launch more attacks and eventually wipe out the Jewish state?
Yeah, exactly. You know, what happens in the Hamas charter is that they're saying that they want to eliminate the purpose is to destroy Israel and kill the Jews. And that fits exactly into Iran's goals as well. Iran funded and trained and prepared Hamas for October 7th and beyond. And so what we're seeing with these revelations is that it just wasn't the kibbutzes on the border there with Gaza. They wanted to go much further. The furthest they got was about 15 miles away from the border in a place called Ofakim. We were there just about a week after the October 7th, and we saw that there were maybe 50 people murdered in that particular community. But they wanted to go even further, and actually it seems like they wanted to go all the way to the West Bank, and that would have been a psychological really achievement for them if they were able to get to that far. But Hamas and one of their leaders has said, you know, they want to do October 7th again and again and again, up to the millionth time. So that gives you an idea of the motivation of Hamas and its members and what they wanted to do on October 7th and far beyond.
Really quickly, I want to return now to Hezbollah. You reported one expert calling the fighting with Hezbollah a low-scale war. How serious is the concern there about this turning into a full-blown war between Israel and Hezbollah?
Very serious, Ephraim, and if this really explodes into a full-blown war, that's really going to change the whole dynamic here in the Middle East and certainly in Israel. The IDF chief of staff was up there in the north yesterday. We hear that he approved both offensive and defensive plans going forward. We don't know exactly what those plans are, but the goal of that plan is to have the residents of the north be able to go back to their homes. Right now, there's about 60,000 residents that have left that area. Some of them, we understand, are living right here in Jerusalem right now, and that's something Israel can't live with on a long term. So what now? Hezbollah and Iran is prolonging this thing, keep escalating it day by day, and it's something that really is untenable for a long term that Israel would be able to withstand, not only to have their residents, away from the border, but to be able to handle this day by day. So it's a very serious concern here in Israel.
All right, Chris Mitchell, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief. Chris, thank you so much. And as always, many people here are praying for you and our entire team there in Israel. Coming up, protests around the world in recent weeks, many speaking out against the state of Israel. Today, Americans are gathering for a march for Israel in our nation's capital. We're going to have that story for you when we come back.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News. Because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
Jews around the world are on edge because of the rise in global anti-Semitism after the Hamas attack on Israel. In cities around the world, including right here in America, pro-Palestinian marchers are calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. Today, here in the U.S., supporters of the Jewish state are taking a stand, traveling from across the country to our nation's capital to show support for Israel and the Jewish people. CBN's Abigail Robertson brings us that story now. She's in Washington.
Tens of thousands of people are expected to gather at the National Mall today to show support for the state of Israel and the hostages taken on October 7th, and to stand against growing anti-Semitism around the world.
I think what's important is not what's said at the rally. What's important is how many people show up. This is a numbers game.
Organizers say there is a need for a public stand with Israel as blatant Jew hatred is rapidly rising across America. FBI Director Christopher Wray recently telling Congress that anti-Semitism is reaching historic levels in the United States.
A lot of what we are doing with this event on Tuesday is to show the world, to show America, to show Congress, and to show the White House that the vast, vast majority of Americans stand with Israel and not with these Hamas sympathizers who are dressing like terrorists and minimizing and rationalizing the terror that has befallen Israel.
People are traveling from all over the country to gather in D.C. Pro-Palestinian marches, like this one in Washington, D.C. recently, and on U.S. college campuses, are raising concerns about the level of anti-Semitism in America.
Palestine will be free in our lifetime.
In London, hundreds of thousands of pro-Palestinian marchers are filling the streets every week. In Paris this weekend, a sign of encouragement as more than 100,000 people marched against anti-Semitism. This as Israel is facing increasing international pressure as it makes war on Hamas in Gaza after the terror group slaughtered more than 1,400 Israelis. Ahead of the D.C. rally, Christians gathered at the Israeli embassy to view unedited video of the horrific Hamas attacks on October 7th.
I came today to get insight, and I got some real insight on the ugliness, the brutality. I've heard about it, but I've now seen it firsthand. And I had to come and bear witness to it. Now I'm going to go tell everybody I can what I've learned and why it's important that we stand with Israel.
Event organizers tell CBN News they are in constant contact with law enforcement to address security concerns around today's event, adding there will be metal detectors and hundreds of police officers present. Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Is this afternoon from 1 to 3 p.m. in Washington, D.C. You can watch it on our CBN YouTube page and the CBN News channel and all of our CBN News platforms. Still ahead, we're going to take you back to Israel, where around 250,000 people have left their homes because of the war, with many staying in hotels for now. But they promise they plan to go back and rebuild their communities. We're going to bring you their story right after this. Some 250,000 Israelis have evacuated their homes because of the fighting at both the southern and northern borders. Many are in hotels, not knowing their future. But as CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl reports, despite the trauma and uncertainty, Israelis are standing strong.
1,000 people are staying here at this resort hotel on the Dead Sea, but they're not on vacation. They were forced to flee their homes in Kibbutz Be'eri after Hamas attacked on October 7th.
I was in my safe room. They came into my house. They ruined everything, but I'm still alive and I'm still here. And what the most important thing for us now, for my family now, is to bring my sister and brother-in-law back home.
Hamas kidnapped Hamkin's sister Raz and brother-in-law Ohad Ben-Ami that day, and the family holds out hope for their return.
I'm very stressed every day. We don't know anything about their physical condition, so every day is like unknowing what to do next. We are just hoping for good news every day.
Nir Shani is father of 16-year-old hostage Amit Shani.
They entered my house around 9:30. They broke everything, broke the walls, tried to enter the safe room. I had to struggle with them, and they set the house on fire. My house is burned, but I survived till the army rescued me out around 7 at the evening.
Amit, his mom and two younger sisters, lived at the center of the kibbutz and stayed in touch with Nir for hours during the ordeal.
Later on, they told me that 7 armed entered the house. They succeeded to open the door. They took him out to the grass. They brought a car. They tied the boys with ropes behind their back. One of the terrorists sat by them, and they drove away.
29 of Be'eri's 1,200 members are missing and believed kidnapped into Gaza. Hamas slaughtered another 86 Be'eri residents, including Michal Pinyan's parents, Mati and Amir Weiss.
So we got to the safe room on 6:30, but we didn't get out until 1 a.m.
While the terrorists couldn't breach Michal's shelter, they took over her parents' home.
I think around 9, my mom wrote us that she hears Arabic voices outside her house. A few seconds later, she wrote, "They're in my house, they're shouting. They're throwing grenades to blow up the house and the safe room door." And then there was the message of Dad got hurt, he was shot.
She said what was supposed to be a safe room wasn't.
They blew up the safe room door. They took them out. and they were found by the gate of the kibbutz with their hand tied and shot in their head. It's hard for me to think they died in this way, in fear, in pain.
It took 2 weeks before Michal and her 3 siblings could bury their parents. Her youngest brother followed through on his wedding plans for October 30th.
It was a happy and sad moment together. So we got a funeral and we got a wedding.
Founded in 1946 before the State of Israel, Be'eri ended up being one of the hardest hit areas on October 7th. Still, members say the community will survive.
And it's obvious that if we want to stay and keep our country safe, we will have to beat them. I'm full of hope that I will see my son again, and I hope soon.
We have a right to defend our country, and people need to understand there's no other way. We have to take Hamas down in order to go home.
I will go back to Be'eri. I will go back. I will go back and I will live there until I die, but I will go back. And I will rebuild my home and rebuild my family in where I was born, because that's my home. There's no other home for me in the world, anywhere.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, the Dead Sea, Israel.
We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your day ahead. Stay with us. It's time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. This is a message I hope encourages you and perhaps moves you to post, tag, tweet, and share it with those in your circles of influences. God promises peace, and your faith in Him is proof of His promise. It's your title, your deed of ownership. When people and problems disturb or threaten to take that peace, take out your title, your deed, your faith, and be reminded peace is His promise, and you own that. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. Take a moment. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. That address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. I encourage you to make this a terrific Tuesday and come back and join us right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye, God bless, and thank you for watching.